Yeah, thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, please. We can hear you.
Right, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
So I hope the participants, I'm very happy to see 250 participants in this session from various countries, and I welcome you all. And I believe that you already have some knowledge about systematic reviews, and it is a series. So you must have, if you have been joining the other sessions, for this one, you must be having some knowledge of the systematic reviews. So before I begin, may I request anyone, if you could interact and let me know that what do you understand by systematic review? Yes, the rest can mute their mics, and only anyone who wants to just say something about what is this systematic review, if you could just few words, say a few words about that.
I want to try.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I see systematic review as a quest to review articles that are in a particular subject area, extensive in-depth review or searching for information that is related to articles in the particular subject area from a particular year group to or year range.
Very, very much fine. Anybody else? Yes,
So
I can
I will
see
say
Oscar, and then Eunice, if I pronounce correctly. So
yes,
first,
please.
Oscar, please. Yes.
So Oscar speaking.
Yes,
I will
Oscar.
agree to my brother. I will add up that systematic review is a type of a review which is on the high hierarchy in terms of academic reviews, that it follows certain protocol or follow certain system that
Right.
when you follow that system, which is generally accepted by the communities, yeah, that is all what I have to say.
No, very much. Thank you very much. Quite right. And
Yes.
Lawal, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Prof. Good evening.
Good evening.
A systematic review is a type of literature review that means that you use some software to test some databases to review a particular literature to get information. And when you do the analysis, it can help in a policy formation. Thank you.
Thank you. Iftikhar, do you want to say something? Your hand was raised.
Yeah, I want to say that systemic review is a type of study in which we summarize reports of different studies, and guidelines are based on these studies. Thank you.
Thank you. Fortune, Ogo, Nada, Abala. Right. So let's move forward, and you can lower your hands. And let's today.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes,
systematic.
yes,
Hello, can I speak?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. From my point of view, I think systematic review is a scholarly synthesis of a particular topic, maybe a chosen topic that you systematically you synthesize based on evidence and pre-planned methods, to get the evidence out of that particular studies. Okay.
Thank you. So all of you have been very right. So whatever you said, it collectively becomes the definition of systematic reviews. So what we are going to learn today is a small topic among the others, which are a bit more complicated. but it's a very straightforward and very simple one. And it is about the searching the studies. So how do you search the studies? So if there are some mics are open, if you could all close them, it would be easier for others to listen. So today we are going to learn how to search for the studies for systematic reviews. And as rightly said by you, so what we are going to see today, what we are going to have today are the sources to search and how to plan for that search process and how to design the search strategies. So if you look at these 3 points, that's it. We are just going to talk about these things, but this is the crux of when you sit and you start thinking how to find out the studies for your answer your study as your systematic review question, which you want to do it. And why do you want to do this systematic review? Most of you have already told that you want to have higher level of evidence or higher quality of evidence. So there are a number of ways and the objectives for which you do the systematic reviews. But the most important and the one as one of our attendants, he said that we look for the evidence. So systematic reviews of interventions, they are the one which look at the which combine different randomized controlled trials. And you know that randomized controlled trials are considered to be the gold standard of the evidence collected. But why do we randomize? We randomize because we want to get rid of the bias. But sometimes the randomized controlled trials, they do get some inherent bias, and those biases come in because perhaps the sample size becomes very small, or there are issues with the masking, there are issues with the education concealment, and other different methods through which we try to minimize the bias, and the bias is there. The systematic reviews, what they do, that they look for the highest kind of the most you can say properly designed and conducted RCT, whose results could be trusted. So that's why we do the systematic reviews of interventions. You can do other systematic reviews as well. You can look at the cohort studies, you can look at the different case control studies, you can combine big cross-sectional surveys, and you can also do the systematic reviews for those studies. And you can look at and there are a number of tools available. Usually what we when we look at the randomized controlled trials, the most common one that we use is the GRADE one, GRADE. So that GRADE is a tool that is used to assess the bias in the randomized controlled trials, and there are other tools as well. And of course, then we have the software, which is mostly used to do the meta-analysis. That's a ref manager is also used for conducting the systematic reviews. So systematic reviews of intervention, they require a thorough, objective, and reproducible search of a range of sources to identify as many relevant studies as possible within the resource limits. Now, it's important that, because why I say resource limits, because you might think that this is not a kind of it's not a kind of field survey or big study for which the resources are required, but mind it that these different data banks whom you approach for studies, they do charge, and there are a number of ways they charge for the access to the literature. So high quality of the literature, and we now understand that in the open access, the authors have to pay, though the reader doesn't have to pay, but the authors have to pay. But if you are going to going to search in big data banks, which I'm going to narrate later. For those, they have a fee, and those fees can be paid by the individuals themselves or their institutions or through the trial groups which work in those countries. So this is a major factor in distinguishing systematic reviews from traditional narrative reviews and helps to minimize bias and therefore assist in achieving the reliable estimates of effects. So you must have seen the scoping reviews and the narrative reviews and simple literature reviews. So this is a systematic process. It tries to take out most of the bias which could come in when you do a review. A simple review might carry a lot of bias in it. But systematic review ensures most of the time, because it's not only the systematic review that is done to find out the best quality of randomized controlled trial or best study that is available answering your question or the research question or for the guidelines. You want to understand what evidence is what best evidence is available. Even the systematic reviews, they end up with some kind of bias. And in those cases, we conduct overviews of the systematic reviews. Similarly, as we get those randomized controlled trials and put them together, and then we do a systematic review and try to understand which one is the best. We bring in all the systematic reviews on one topic. And then, for instance, for traumatic brain injury, there might be a number of interventions for traumatic brain injury. And a number of trials must have been done. They must have been used mannitol, they must have used corticosteroids, they must have used tranexamic acids. And we as a scientist doing the systematic reviews are bound to tell whether those interventions were harmful or useful. And that's how that process starts, which takes us to the towards the guidelines development. So we have a number of search engines which we were talking about. So whenever you start doing your systematic review and you try to search for the search engines or the studies, never rely on one search engine. The reason being that not all the studies are going to be there. They are very specific search engines or databases, which we'll be talking later, and they are very much specific for certain. For instance, for nursing, there is one. For medicine, there is medical subject heading. There's more to be found in a couple of. But the trials, they are in the center, so that all the trials are there. But there can be other search engines which would bring in other studies which actually not reflected in those data banks. So not to rely on just one search engine. Time and budget constraint, they required the review author to balance the thoroughness of the search with efficiency and use of time and funds. So this is important that, for instance, such as the publication bias and language bias should not come in, and usually don't restrict yourself to one language. Maybe there are other studies in other languages. It could be in Chinese, in Japanese, in African, in Turkish, or in Dutch, in German language. So it's always better not to restrict for any kind of language. And it's also good to avoid the publication bias, also do the gray literature search and other such as theses and reports and the other literature available, so as to minimize the publication bias. So systematic reviews have studies as the primary units of interest in analysis, and a single study may have more than one report about it, and each of these reports may contribute useful information for the review. So maybe we have one study, but then we have more than one reports written in that context. So if we just go for one search engine, we are going to miss it. So that's why it is kept a little bit broad, and those areas are covered through a very well-defined search strategy. And we'll in the end of this session, we'll be looking at some of the search terms, how to combine them, and how to develop our own search strategies. So most of the time, when you read the systematic reviews, overview of the systematic reviews or systematic analysis, they do a number of systematic reviews for the systematic analysis. This is the another level of the or the quality of the evidence nowadays. So you can find always you find it, you can look at their appendices and you can find those search strategies very explicitly given, because it is important that you make a search strategy which is reproducible. It should be reproducible. Anyone else, if run the same search strategy, he or she should get the same results as you did. So there are biological, there are many bibliographic databases. For instance, searches for health-related bibliographic databases are generally the easiest one, like for NLM and PubMed, and everybody can go onto PubMed. It's freely available. You most of the time when you sit and want to do the simple literature review, you want to see find out some studies according to what you want. What you do is you make a very simple search. You combine different terms, go into the PubMed, and then you go into the advanced settings, and there you start combining the terms, the mesh headings, and then you come up with a search terms, and then you find out some kind of studies out of that. So some bibliographic databases such as Medline and EMBase, they include abstract for the majority of the recent records. So if there is an advantage of these databases, that they can be searched electronically, both for words in the title or abstract, and by using the standardized indexing terms or control vocabulary assigned to each record. So that those can be done very easily. And that's why I've given the example of PubMed, which most of you in your process of student life, and whenever you want to write some article, or you want to write some protocols or proposals, it's very easy, because it doesn't cost you much. So you just go and start retrieving the studies. But PubMed is one search engine. So there are many others as well. And when you are trying to do a systematic review, and you might miss out many studies which are not reflected in PubMed, and they are present in other ones. So Cochrane collaboration is the one which has been developing a database or register of reports of controlled trials called as the Cochrane Central Register of Controlled Trials, or Central, simple, this is the acronym. So these databases are available to the individuals for a fee, on a subscription, or on a pay-as-you-go basis. They can also be available free at the point of use through whenever your universities or your institutions or your organizations, they have already taken the membership of these big databases. You can always access those freely. If you are studying in a UK university, it's very easy for you to access those databases. When you are doing your PhDs, you can access them. But once you are back to your country, and if you are not a member of such an organization which is again in turn member of these databases, then you have to pay for each and every article. That's why when you commission, when you apply to do a systematic review, or you want to do a systematic review to answer your research question, and sometimes there is a call for proposal for systematic reviews, and you apply for them. So then you have to budget for these fees as well, because in addition to the per day cost or per hour cost of you and your colleagues who are going to do that laborious work, and mine, it's not an easy task, because it need to be unbiased, it need to be complete, and you don't have to leave any stone unturned in that. And you have to be very careful when you start selecting studies and removing the duplicates, because there are a number of search engines. And when you, for instance, you go into the EMBase, you go to the Medline, you go to the PubMed, you go to the Sinhal and other ones, and there are a number of studies which are present in all these ones, and they just pop in your when you do the according to the scheme when you start bringing them, and then you have to remove the duplicates. So duplication occurs, and it is again it's a problem, and that needs to be taken care of, and that's a part of the process. And then there are a number of international initiatives to provide free or low-cost online access. One of them is Hinari. It is in the WHO's AMRO region. It is with the WHO supports it. And I think in Afro region as well. The Hinari must be available in the institutions. If not, you can talk to your regional office and they of the WHO, and they do support having your libraries. And this one, they also have a wide range of databases, including the Cochrane Library and more than 4,000 major journals from wide range of publishers in biomedical and related social science and etc. So those can be accessed on this web address that I have given, and you can go, and if you don't have, you can apply for that. Usually these are the librarians of your universities who go and who apply for these sport. So they apply for the sport, and the search strategy itself, they are built by the librarians, and usually the principal investigators and co-investigators are doing, but it's always recommended that an experienced librarian should be developing that. So there is another one. It's in ASP, and I hope Fortune also is very much a member of this in ASP, and they also have these availability of scientific publications. Availability of journal titles, they vary by the country, and you can go into their web address. You can explore them, and you can find out how can they help and how many opportunities they do have. Then we have the IFL is the similar to initiative based on library consortia to support affordable licensing with journals in 50 low-income and transition countries in Central, Eastern, and Southeast Asia, Europe, and former Soviet Union, Africa, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. So they also have the support, and they provide affordable licensing of the journals in the low and middle income countries. The central as the most comprehensive source of reports of controlled trials. So when we talk about the randomized controlled trials or the controlled trials, so that's the place where we have to look for the literature, and that's central. So it's a bit old kind of information, but till now they don't have this. They have not updated on their website. So central contains only. It's more than, I think now it should be around 1 million citations to report of trials and other studies. So they have really very good, handsome collection of trial reports. And they also have those reports and articles from other databases. So all the control Cochrane review groups, CRGs are the Cochrane review groups. So all the CRGs they have the free access. So if in your country, if you have a CRG through that, if you are a member with them or you are involved with them, so you can have the free access. So this is the web address of the Cochrane Library. You can go and you can explore. You can enroll for updates and all those things. And later on, you can become member as well of a couple of initiatives. So many health and academic institutions and organizations, they provide access to the members, as I talked earlier, and you can go to the access to Cochrane, the top of the Cochrane Library homepage, and from there drop down and you can find access to your country. Very famous Medline and EMBase, they contain 16 million references to journal articles from 1950 onwards. So currently 5,200 journals in 37 languages are indexed for the Medline, and you can go to that address and find it there. And that's all. Let's go into PubMed, and all those things are there. So PubMed includes records from journals that are not indexed for Medline and records considered out of scope from journals. So when you start looking for the according to your search terms, you want to look, you start building up for different databases. you go for Medline and EMBase and also the PubMed, because there are some records which are not indexed for Medline and you can find them in PubMed. So Medline is also available on subscription, such as Ovid, and Ovid is very common, very famous. Access is usually free to members of the institution, but of course, if you are not with the institution which is the member, then you have to pay. Otherwise, your hospitals or universities have already paid. NLM, they have developed a gateway which allows users to search Medline or PubMed together with the, other NLM sources simultaneous, such as Health Service Research Project database, meeting abstracts, and ToxLine subset for toxicological citations. So this is their web address. So EMBase is also very much rich. Till now, it has become very much rich, and the Elsevier, they also have their own version of EMBase, and that's also has a lot of literature with them. Their website, web address is there. And EMBase itself is available by subscription, and of course, if your hospital or your university is the member, then it's free for you. And if you have the CRGs, and if they have the access, you can also have the access if they make you a member of that. And you see that 5,200 journals indexed in Medline, 1,800 are not indexed in EMBase. So sometimes it's become very much important that you go for 2 or 3 main databases in which, if it is about health, of course, you have to look in all the 3 ones: PubMed, EMBase, and the Medline. So actual degree of reference overlaps varies widely according to the topic, but studies comparing searches of 2 databases have generally concluded that a comprehensive search requires both the databases to be searched. And that's what I was telling, that you have to, if you want to do the comprehensive search, look for all the articles, almost all the articles around your topic, then you have to search in both the databases. So there are some duplications, and you can remove them later on. So there are some, apart from those which are globally available, there are some national and regional databases as well. For instance, Africa has African Index Medicus of their own, and this is their web address. Australia has their own Australian Medical Index. China has Chinese Biomedical Literature Database. Eastern Mediterranean has Index Medicus, which is very famous. Europe has Pascal. India has IndiaMed. Korea has KoreaMed. Pakistan has PakMed. Latin American and the Caribbean, they have the LILACs, and Southeast Asia Index Medicus for Southeast Asian region. So there are number of every region you can find, and they have their own databases. So if you are working in a specific region or region of the countries, and you also want to look at the local literature, which sometimes is not published in PubMed or Medline or EMBase, you can find them there, and you can also include them. And that why it's important to include those regional databases, it decreases the chances of publication bias, because they are published in the region or the country databases, and you can't find them on the PubMed, or there are many journals from the low middle income countries which are in the process of being indexed by the PubMed and other databases, and they are still not. But there are a lot of studies done, but they do not qualify them to be searched out when somebody hits the Cochrane or EMBase or Medline or PubMed. So a lot of information is missed out. So that's the opportunity to minimize your publication bias when you are searching for studies for your systematic review. Then there are specific databases for biology. Then they have this health promotion, then they have data promoting health effectiveness review. So there are a number of these subject specific databases that you can find out. On international health, on global health, you can have Popline, which is very famous for reproductive health. It is freely available on the internet for nursing and allied. and complementary medicine. Then we have the British Nursing Index. So there are, for every subject, you can find, Sinhal is very much famous for nursing and allied health citations. EM Care is for the emergency. Mantis is for osteopathy and chiropractic. And OT Seeker is a systematic review and appraised randomized trials in occupational therapy. It's freely available on the internet. You can, anytime you can go and see, and they have a very small search combining kind of they also, because they don't have they don't charge, so they are short of money. So I think they're if you search on OTSeeker, you will find most of the citations up to perhaps up to 2017 or 2018, because after that there were some issues with they didn't have the funds to continue, but they have they are still working, but they are short of funds. So you have the physiotherapy evidence-based, PEDRO, and you can look for systematic reviews and appraised randomized trials in physiotherapy. They are also available freely on the internet. And for the social community, for child data, for community-wise, social care, so all those you can find on the, and these are all subject specific. PsycInfo is there, is very much famous. Sociological abstracts are there. So educational resource centers is there. Campbell collaboration for social, psychological, and education criminological trial register is also very much famous, and it's freely available on the internet. So there are a number of, you can see there are a number of subject specific databases apart from those big ones which you can access. They are freely available. So when you do your systematic, when you develop your systematic review search terms, try to put them in all those search terms in all specific. If you are working in occupational health, or you are working in psychology or psychiatry, or you are looking at the nursing allied fields, do go to those databases which are freely available to start with, and put your search terms there and see what you get out of there. And of course, where you have to pay, but these are some of very easily accessible and free to use. And Google Scholar, the most favored one for everyone. And then we have the Intuit, that is also free on the net, and it is UK based. And then we have TRIP database, evidence-based healthcare resources. This is also free. You can also get free access to the studies and citations in the internet. Then we have Science Citation Index. So there are 6,000 major scientific, technical, medical journals and links. Those can be found, and it is available online as SciSearch, and on the internet is Web of Science. So Web of Science is also incorporated in Web of Knowledge, and Web of Science is very much famous. Whoever deals with the journals, because most of the journals they try to qualify and get indexed with the Web of Science, and that is a part of kind of credibility dose for these journals from the low middle income countries. So once they are with the Web of Science, their impact factor starts building up. With Scopus, their end of impact factor starts building up. With PubMed, if they are in the PubMed index and the PubMed. So this is the citation and the impact factor is important for journals. So they just get into those web of these databases, and they have their own criteria, and it's very strict criteria. So the journals have to qualify to be on their databases. That's why I say that from low middle income countries, or especially from the low income countries, there are many journals which take a lot of time to qualify to be the part of for these databases. So if you miss those journals and the studies published in them, that will lead to the publication bias. So it's always better to also try to search into the country and into the country's own databases and the regional databases, along with these very famous and big databases, which do of course have real wealth of knowledge, and you can't miss them when you are going to do a systematic review. That's a must, that you must have the access to those articles and published literature in those databases. So this is the some more data addresses where you can go and look for the from the same for different studies. So it's also social science citation index is also there. In 2004, Elsevier launched an abstract and citation database, Scopus, and this is the one which is also very much famous, along with Web of Science. Now as well, if you are a reviewer, and now we also have the Babylon as well. But if you are a reviewer, then you get your credits in Scopus. You publish, you get the credit from the Scopus. Like ORCID, you also have this Scopus identity now. It contains over 33 million abstracts and results from nearly 400 million scientific web pages. So it's a very good source, and you must also include when you are doing your systematic reviews. So then we have dissertations and other databases. So if you want to look at the ProQuest dissertations and thesis databases there, and then you can look at most of the non-published, perhaps doctoral dissertation and master's thesis would be there. Then we have the index of thesis in Great Britain and Ireland, and then the DIS online indexes 50,000 German dissertations. And now you see the language barrier. So that's why when you do a systematic review, not to restrict your search to one language, only to English. So you see how much is there in German, in Russian, in other languages as well. So you can get the translations. So it's not an issue, that's another topic, but always try to get as much as you can so that there is no publication bias. Because when you write a systematic review, I told you that somebody is going to do an overview of systematic reviews one day. It is the same that somebody did the randomized control trial and now you are doing the systematic review. And you are going to decide on based on a criteria whether a very expensive randomized control trial done by someone actually benefits the humanity or not, or its results are applicable to be included into a treatment guideline. So once you do the systematic review, somebody in future or near future or later is going to do an overview of systematic reviews, and it's going to judge your systematic review whether it was done properly or it has bias in it. So if publication bias, if he or she finds a publication bias, then recommendations of your systematic reviews, they will be downgraded, or any other bias comes in. So you have to do a very good systematic review, which should stand the grilling of an overview of systematic review. So when I did my first overview of systematic reviews, that was on the traumatic brain injury. So I could only recommend 2 trials in my overview of systematic reviews, and rest all have the problems. So those randomized controlled trials, those all systematic reviews, we recommended other kind of trials. They were not that good enough to they had some issues. Most of the systematic reviews, they had some problem with their you can say the evidence. So there were some biases, inherent biases which came in. So you only can find 1 or 2 systematic reviews which were free from any kind of bias, and then a person who does, or a team who does the overview of systematic review, they recommend a systematic review for the guidelines, or a couple of systematic reviews for the guidelines, and then they go into the treatment, and then into the books, in the medical books and the specialty books. So we have gray literature databases as well, and these are many. There are many people find them differently, but usually it means literature that's not formally published in resources such as books or journals or articles. One such example is OpenSigil.inis.fr. It's a French database. The Healthcare Management Information Consortium, for instance, contains records from Library Information Services Department of the Department of Health in England and the King's Fund Information Library Services. So they also have a lot of great literature. So this great literature also need to be looked into. You can talk to the expert as well. So US National Technical Information Service provide access to results of both US and non-US government-sponsored research and provide a full text of the technical reports of most of the research retrieved. So these are also, again, the great examples of the great literature. PsycExtra is a companion database, and they also contain newspapers and magazines and technical and annual reports. But it's different from PsycInfo, which we talked, because that is proper one. But this is the gray literature. So you also look at the gray literature as well. You also do the hand searching as well, because you want to include as many published and non-published information that you can get. So there are other journals and other non-bibliographic database sources, and you, as I said, you can do the hand searching. You can find the full text journals available electronically as well. So there are a number of, for instance, PMC, PLOS. They're all there. When you do a search in PubMed, there is a drop-down menu in which if you click PMC, you will get the full text articles. But those would be limited ones, and a lot of articles which are not open access, you find only abstract, and you have to buy them or subscribe for them. Then there are table of contents. They have many journals. Those are available by subscription only. They only offer the table of contents. They are not open access. So TOCs are available. And again, you have to look for a lot of other website addresses are there, which can be used. So then again, these dissertations and thesis databases, they can be used. You can have conference abstract or proceedings, other reviews, guidelines, and reference lists. You can do the web searching, unpublished ongoing studies, and subject-specific trial registers are also there. And then the pharmaceutical industry trials registers are also there, and trials results registered in other sources. So these also can be and should be looked into. Now, let's see how to search for this study. So when you develop a protocol, so it's important that whenever you do develop a protocol, you mention the criteria, the inclusion and exclusion criteria. So the eligibility criteria will specify the type of design, type of participant, type of interventions. Usually, the famous one is the PICO. So whether but these are the must that experimental and comparator, in some cases, the type of outcomes to be addressed should be there. So issues to consider in planning a search should include, for instance, whether the review is limited to the randomized controlled trial or whether the other study designs will be included, and the requirement to identify adverse effect data, the nature of the interventions being addressed, any geographical consideration as the need for such. For instance, if you want to look at the Chinese studies, and then you need to restrict for the time period when any evaluation of these interventions may have taken place. And again, if you need to include any unpublished data. What should be the structure of a search strategy? So it is usually unnecessary and even undesirable to search on every aspect of the review's clinical question, often referred to as PICO that I just mentioned. So in general databases such as Medline, such strategies were identified as Cochrane. For instance, for the Cochrane review, typically have the 3 sets of terms. Terms to search for the health condition of interest in the population, terms to search for the intervention evaluated, and term to search for the types of study design to be included. So those typically a filter for randomized controlled trial are used. So you can modify them. When you look at the PICO, you can modify it what you are doing the systematic review. This is typical for the clinical trials, but if you want to do it for the community-based studies or the large cross-section surveys, or you want to look at the case series, or you want to case control studies, or the cohort studies, you can modify your outcome. You can modify this strategy, because here the more important is just to search for the health condition of interest, for instance, in the population. And because the randomized control trials, they have the intervention, so one has to look at for the interventions, the evaluation of the intervention. And study design, for instance, randomized control trial, only randomized control trial, nothing else. So you can either restrict or expand for your systematic review when you are making your inclusion criteria. You can have case series and case and the cross-sectional surveys, or you can have case control studies and nested case control studies. Both of them you want to see because they have a typical similar comparison of groups in which disease has occurred already have happened. But for the cohort studies, of course, they are free of disease, and you have to follow, and you want to bring all the cohort studies only. Or you can just include the community trials or the field trials, and again, those need to have some filter so that the other studies they don't come in. So service providers, we have, for instance, for randomized controlled trials, patient in OVAID, randomized controlled trial, PubMed. For PubMed, if you want to look at the for instance, clinical trial patients, it becomes in bracket. You have to write like this. In Cerebral Platter, you have to like this. So for each database, there is a style which they like. So you have to follow that. And those search strategies for each databases, or the way you have to write it, and the way you have to get your search done, you have to use that format. So let's talk about the sensitivity and the precision. So searches for systematic reviews aim to be as extensive as possible in order to ensure that as many as possible of the necessary and relevant studies are included in the review. So that's the sensitivity, but it is, however, necessary to strike a balance between striving for comprehensiveness and maintaining relevance when developing a search strategy. Increasing the comprehensiveness or sensitivity of a search will reduce the precision and will retrieve more non-relevant articles. So you have to be careful that how much precise you have and how much comprehensive you have. That is some that you must it's your decision when you develop your search terms, because when you become very much broad, you want to have each and everything, then you become less precise as well. But when you become precise, then you might miss a lot of things. So you have to make a very good trade-off. So sensitivity is defined as a number of relevant reports identified divided by the total number of relevant reports in the existence, and precision divides as the number of relevant reports identified divided by the total number of reports identified. So out of how many you have, and when whatever is available, and you just find out the relevant reports out of it is sensitivity, but once identified and out of that, the relevant one when you take out, that's the precision. And then you have to use control vocabulary and the text words. One way to begin to identify control vocabulary is to retrieve articles from that databases that meet inclusion criteria for the review. And many databases, they offer the facility to explore subject terms, to include more specific terms automatically in the search. For example, Medline search and using the match terms brain injuries, if explored, will automatically search not only for term brain injury, but also for the more specific term shaken baby syndrome. So if you do a very simple search term building up even in the PubMed, you will have this explored term there. So if you explored it, then it is going to get more conditions which are very much associated with the one you are looking for. So as articles in Medline on the subject of shaken baby syndrome should only be indexed with the more specific term, shaken baby syndrome, and not also with the more general term, such as for the brain injuries. It is important that match terms are explored wherever appropriate in order not to miss the relevant article. So you have to decide which one to explore and which one to not, because you might get extra kind of things which you can say that it will be not precise. It will be comprehensive, but not precise. So it is particularly important in Medline to distinguish between publication type terms and other related match terms. For example, a report of randomized controlled trial be indexed in Medline with the publication term randomized controlled trial, whereas an article about randomized controlled trials would be indexed with the match term randomized controlled trials with S as topic. So these are a bit of terminologies and where to use them and what is your objective, that you have to be careful of the wording and terminologies. You can, there are a number of synonymous, related terms, variant spelling, truncation, wildcards are available. For instance, pressure sores and decubitus ulcers they are synonymous. And if you just miss one, you have a lot of studies will be just talking about or in their keywords or abstract word, decubitus ulcer is there, but pressure sore is not there. So maybe the related terms can be there, brain or head trauma, for instance, and traumatic brain injury. So if you just make a term traumatic brain injury and you miss head trauma, you might miss a lot of articles and a lot of literature which is reporting only head trauma. You can have variant spellings for British and English, British and US English. Be careful that tumor and tumor, one is British and other is American English. So you have to put those both of the words to capture these variations through truncation and wildcards. For instance, truncation, you can put statics. And once you put the statics truncated and random, then it is going to include randomized or randomly and everything, which ends with which is truncated from random. Wildcard for woman, vote question mark, and so it will going to collect woman as well as women. So these features, they vary across the service providers and they have their own. And then you have the Boolean operators and or a not very famous one. A search study should build up the controlled vocabulary terms, text words, synonymous, rated terms for each concept at a time, joining together each of the terms within each concept with the Boolean or operator. And then you can, we are going to do that at the end and see the search strategy. So sets of terms should usually be developed for the healthcare condition, what the interventions that you want to do in the study design. The final step of joining these three sets with the AND operator limits the retrieval set and articles of the appropriate study design. That because when you put at and it becomes narrower and narrower. It's something or that when you use or more and more or, it becomes very wide. So you try to use first you go with broad, make it comprehensive, and then within the system you try to narrow it and be more precise. So this is a simple diagram when you are developing your search strategies. So if you want to retrieve the relevant records, for instance, you have substance abuse concept, you have the children concept, you have the RCT concept, and these three are going to intersect, and you want to look at for the RCTs in children. So for substance abuse, addiction, alcohol, drug addicts, cocaine, narcotics, for instance, and you have the children with the substance abuse problem, RCTs and substance abuse. You have children concept, child, children, teenager. So these are all keywords are there. So for RCT concept, you have randomized controlled trial in PT or controlled trial, PT, etc. Again, all these Cochrane searches, if you look at the Cochrane systematic book on systematic reviews, you will find many other definitions and explanations of these concepts. And then when you combine them, you get the relevant records on in the randomized controlled trials in children. So searches for Cochrane reviews can be extremely long if you're doing a systematic review for Cochrane. And of course, any kind of systematic review, which, for instance, it is dated back 10 years, and it could include hundreds of search statements, because we're just talking about hundreds. So it can become very long one as well. And some service provider often alternative to this. For example, over it is possible to combine sets using syntax or by 100 or something like that. So everyone, they have their own kind of using the strings and symbols to combine the terms. For instance, we'll see that some do also have the proximity operators like near, next, and adjacent. So in some searches interfaces, it is necessary to specify, for example, by using next or adjacent operative, that two search terms should be adjacent to each other, as the search might simply default to finding both words in the documents, and if the AND operator has been used. So if their terms are not exactly the same, but they are very much near, so your search terms should be able to pick them up as well. It is possible in many search interfaces to specify that the words should be within a specific number of words for each other. For example, near operator in Cochrane library will find the search terms within 6 words of each other. This results in high sensitivity than simple phrase searching for use for next operator. But if you use it for near in the Cochrane, it will, again, it is going to be much sensitive than the next, but greater precision than use of AND operator. It is therefore desirable to use this operator when available and relevant. Then you have that, as in the beginning I said, that no language restriction should be included in the search strategy. Date restriction you can apply if it is known that relevant studies could only have been reported during a specific time period. For example, there was an intervention which was only available after a certain period of time. It was not available before that. For instance, COVID. So if you want to do a systematic review on the non-pharmacological interventions during the COVID outbreak or pandemic, so this is not going to go beyond 2020 or 19. So it was, if somebody is trying to search and include the studies from 2018, it would be useless, because COVID came around start of 2020 all over the world. So you have to go on just for 3 years before. So when you do this search and you have a lot of studies and publications, they are with you, you have to be careful to because there could be some studies which are, or the papers which are already retracted. There are reports of studies in Dex and Medline that have been retracted as fraudulent, or other reasons could be there. Duplicate publications could be there. So they have this term retract publications. So you have to look for those retracted publications so that by mistake you don't include them. And they have that policy. The NLM, they have the policy for that. So in some display formats of version of Medline, the retracted publication, erratum, comment statements are included. For instance, if you look at Lancet, so Lancet usually keep on publishing department of error. So an erratum is also there. So they keep on publishing those mistakes, which were sometimes printing mistakes or done by the authors, or they want to revise them, or sometimes some studies are objected by the scientist and they are retracted. So one of the, for example, if somebody wants to do highly sensitive search strategy for identifying randomized control trial in Medline, so this is the sensitivity maximizing version, and you can see randomized control trial, control, clinical trial, third, randomized, placebo, drug therapy, randomly trial groups 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and combine 1, 2, 3 to 8, and 10 animals, not humans, and animals 9, not 10. So what does it mean? PubMed search syntax, PT denotes a publication type term. TIAB denotes a word in the title of the abstract. SH denotes a subheading. MH denotes a medical subject heading and terms exploded. MESH, no EXP denotes a medical subject not exploded. And TI denotes the word in the title. So it's a very kind of sensitive, it is going to get as many studies as it can bring in. So let's look at another one in the OVID, and it is also high sensitive search. And similarly, but you see that here the publication type term is not in brackets, it is within the dots, and only the dots are moving. It is their format for OVID. It's not for Cochrane. If you look at the Cochrane, they are in the brackets, and here they have details. And also for Cochrane, you have the hash 1 or hash 2 or hash 3, but for OVID is 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. So it's not like Cochrane. There is a difference in here. In OVID you don't find any kind of hash, but for Cochrane you have the hash all over there. So reporting the search process is important, that you report all how did you search the databases, and in the methods you have to write it in very detail. As I talked earlier, that anybody doing the same systematic same systematic review, want to repeat systematic review, he should be or she should be able to do it with your search strategy. So report this, all the research process in the method section when you are writing. List all databases searched. When you do it, when you have done your systematic review, when you go back and you modify your, you just start writing your report. List all the databases searched, note the dates of the last search for each databases and the period searched. That should be there. Because why? Because it's rapidly evolving. So you do it, and after 1 hour, there are tens and hundreds of more studies are then in the database. So if you don't put the time period and you do not mention it, then again there will be a problem of publication bias. Any language or publication station restriction, if you have those restrictions, usually should not have the language restriction, but maybe the publication restriction is there. Gray literature sources, list them, list individual organization contacted for the information, list any journal and proceedings specifically, and search for the review and any other sources which you searched. So this is a demonstration for search strategy for Medline. This is the OVID format. And now you see that the adjacent 6 operator indicates that within 6 words, $ indicates truncation, .mp dot indicates a search of title, original title, abstract, name of substance, word, and subject heading words. So all these you can find them here. So that was the brief kind of introduction to search. How to should we be searching for studies for doing a systematic review. So I finish here, and I hope it was a kind of a bit lengthy lecture, you can say, in that sense, but the basic idea which I wanted to transmit, I think most probably that should be very much clear. So any questions that you have now, I'll be happy to reply.
Thank you very much, Professor. I want to remind the participants that announcements and are going on through the chat, and we're going to take 3 questions, and any other question can be posted via our social media handles and email for us to get feedback. Thank you. Any question, please, you can raise your hands. Yeah, Linda?
Yes, Linda.
Hello. Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. It's really informative. And my concern is on the number of databases that you can use, because you find like in most in most systematic reviews, it's only like the major databases that are used. It's always Cochrane, Medline, or PubMed that is used. So I wanted to understand, is it because like the 3 databases are the ones that you're almost sure you'll get all the, like most of your articles, or even the other ones would still suffice? Because from the publications, you find like the ones that are published most are the systematic reviews that have been done from these specific databases. Thank you.
Yes, very good question. That's why I specifically mentioned other databases, the country databases and the regional databases, because this is one thing. The first thing is this, that it depends upon your study question or your research question for what you are doing the systematic review. So the most of the time that those systematic reviews that we find in the literature are the ones which have very common questions, whose studies or literature is available in these 3 big. They are sufficient to respond to satisfy that objective of those systematic reviews. But you see, when these systematic reviews, if you collect them and you try to do an overview of systematic reviews of, perhaps they are on the same topic, you have the 3 or 4 systematic reviews which have taken up only these 3 big databases, and for instance, one is from Africa, one is from Asia, and one is from Europe. And when you do a systematic overview of systematic review, you find out that those systematic reviews which are from Africa and Asia, they missed out a lot of information from Asia and Africa, because they didn't look at their local databases, or they didn't go for the gray literature. So in their inclusion criteria, it was missing. So that is one bias which you can identify, perhaps. But if you find systematic reviews which are mostly done in high income countries, and their objective was to look at the interventions which were done in the high income countries, and most of those studies are available in these three big databases, it's fine, then it's not a problem. Yes, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Robert, do you want to say something, or Oscar?
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Khan, for your elaborate presentation. It has been really insightful. I have 3 questions. The first is, what is a string? Then the second one, I didn't get well your explanation when you're differentiating sensitivity and relevance. I would kind of like to ask to throw more light. Then the last one, you've taken time to explain the different ways of searching databases, playing with the Booleans. I wanted to know, is there a technical role librarians are supposed to play in the systematic reviews? Because I can see most of the things can be done by everyone. Thank you very much.
No, can you repeat your last question?
You've explained how to search databases, how to play around with the Boolean logics and what have you. Is there a technical role a librarian is supposed to play on the team of when you're doing a systematic review?
So I don't know if
it's clear. Is it clear now? The role of librarians, a librarian.
Librarian. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
So you see, string is specific for Medline, the one kind of database, for Cochrane, for instance. But for when you do it in OVID, it is not there. So it is. You can say that it combines the terms. So it is important that when you do a search in that database, you use the string. And your second question was about, sorry, what was that, Oscar?
The difference between sensitivity and relevance.
sensitivity and precision.
Oh,
So,
precision is.
precision, not relevance, precision. So sensitivity is how much sensitive your search is and how much more and more it can pick. 100%, you want to have the 100% of literature. So around your study objective, and precision is what actually is required. So for instance, I explained you into very common term that what you do that you go to the market and you want to buy, for instance, apples, and you look at all the apples, and all apples are there. You want to buy them, but then you pick very good ones out of those. So when you have all the apples with you, but when you choose the very good one and when the appropriate one is the precision. So that's the thing. So that's the difference between sensitivity and the precision. So you have to have sensitivity so that you have all the literature with you, but the most relevant one which you require, and you have that criteria with you, because you don't want to put each and everything in you, because there are maybe thousands of records, and if you start looking at all those thousands of records, it could be a problem. So in your inclusion and exclusion criteria, you make them such that if you look at the Prisma statement, so first you have, for instance, 1,000 records, then you have another criteria, it reduces it till you get perhaps 20 or 25 or 30 articles left, which are very much precise to look into that, and the others, they are excluded due to one reason or the other reason. And the third question, please.
The role of librarians.
Yeah.
Systematically. Technical role.
Yeah, librarians, usually it is recommended that the librarians should be developing these search strategies, and in good universities, the librarians, they do, and they have very specific trainings for that. But even the researchers, the principal investigators and co-investigators, they also can do that. But it's always better, because you see, librarians have an access. So they have the access to the databases because of their position, and they are qualified for developing these kind of putting the strings. They know which database would be needing string, which won't be needing string, where the Boolean and truncation, for instance, if the starix is required, or the question mark is required, the wildcard is required. So usually the researchers, they don't go into that depth, and the librarians are well trained for that. Yes, next.
Yes, Prof. This is Oscar again. I want to find out. Okay. Yes, yeah, I want to find out what the community of systematic review will do or is doing to help those that are not in academic institution to get access to some of these strong databases like Scopus, and then where you need the advanced search bar to be able to do a vigorous search. For instance, if you take PubMed, which is, as you said, is free, and then that service is available. Google Scholar is not actually regarded as a search is used. Some institutions consider it as additional source of information. So what are they doing to help us?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, of course. So it's a very good question, Oscar, and it is a problem that the people who work in the communities, and they don't have any liaison with the academic institutions, they suffer from this handicap. So the best thing is this, that one thing is this, that along with PubMed, there are a number of specific subject-specific databases which are freely available. There are a number of those are there. Some of them I have mentioned, and in the book of Cochrane, Systematic Review, you can find a lot of links which are freely available. One thing is this. Secondly, if you want to conduct a systematic review, partner with the university professors or university people, make a consortium, because you see, it's one person helps the other, and then the other person helps. Nobody is perfect, so people should come together, and everyone has his own capacity in which he or she can help the other. So a person working in the community might be very good in the practical knowledge, and an academics person sitting in the university might be very good in theoretical knowledge, and also at the same time having an access to these databases. So they can make a team, and they can together they can write a systematic review so that everybody benefits it. And we do it like this. We engage the people from the community in the field, with those who do not have an access and but have the knowledge. So, and a very practical knowledge that they have, and sometimes they need capacity building, which we should be doing sitting in the universities. So that's the win-win situation that should be there. Yes, Emmanuel, Ephraim, thank you very much, Oscar, for asking this question. Yes, Emmanuel, do you want to say something, or Ephraim?
Hello, hello.
Yes, Ephraim.
Okay.
Hello.
Please excuse me. Excuse me.
Yes.
We're going to take just one more question, and that's from Emmanuel. And then we're going to end the session. For inquiries or for more responses to your question, please post your drop the email on the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, so one question.
Thank you very much.
Emmanuel, please go on.
Okay, I want to ask the major differences between a systematic review and a meta-analysis.
Sorry?
The major differences, if any, between a systematic review and a meta-analysis.
Ah, okay. You see, systematic reviews, they look at the quality of the study. And the meta-analysis, they look at the effect size. What works is the meta-analysis, which intervention really works. And systematic reviews, they usually look at which study has been done in better than the other. It's the best way. Which one has been done best way? It's not about the effect size now, it's the quality of the study. So the quality of clinical trial, this trial was done with the least bias, or it doesn't have any bias. But are there any randomized control trial in one area, for instance, for traumatic brain injury? Again, it can be myocardial infarction, it can be another ailment. So, for instance, one trial is very large, and it was done with very little bias or almost no bias, and they used, for instance, tranexamic acid in reducing the mortality in the traumatic brain injury. So the effect of that trial is perhaps, if we do the meta-analysis, we look at we take other interventions which also did, for instance, use different kind of drugs for improving the survival in the traumatic brain injury, but those didn't have their effect size was less, their participants were less, their results were, for instance, there were a lot of dropouts, there was harm reported. So the one which was very much safe and which has a better effect size, and it is like we make the forest plots for the meta-analysis. In systematic reviews, we use the grading. We look at the bias. We look at which study has a minimum bias. But for meta-analysis, we develop a forest plot and we see which study has the better effect size and which could be recommended for the intervention. Hope this answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Yes, so I think that was the last question. As said by the host. Back to the host, please.
Thank you very much, dear Professor. Thank you very much, dear participants, for attending and for staying longer. We are going to share the slides of this presentation on our social media handles, and we will like to remind us that there are two opportunities announce the internship opportunity.
You are lost.
Everybody, sorry.
You're also lost, Dr. Ifong.
Yeah, sorry, everybody. I think our network logged her out. All right, so thank you very much for joining. She was saying, we have a rapid review webinar series coming up from